I usually do not start my videos by just showing my face, and there's a reason for that. Most of the time, there's nothing particularly special for me to talk about, but this time is different. We are finally celebrating the 500 subscriber special. I am extremely grateful with every single one of you that decided to subscribe to this humble channel, and I will be always grateful for the first 500 that I hope that at some point turn into 500 million. Yeah, that is a very realistic statement for my part. And because this is a very important moment for me, I'm gonna give you all a very big thing. Yeah, that's it. Like, just keep this moment in your hearts for the rest of time, because I'm gonna put them back right now and I'm not gonna go back from that in like until at least 1,000 subscribers, so deal with it. Now you will never remember what happened. As you should know, I have been talking a lot about anime in the last couple months, but most of you probably have absolutely no idea what are actually my favorites, nor what is my taste. So I decided to talk about my favorite anime ever to make this special date even more special. And that anime is Gintama. Gintama. Yeah, because this is a special moment, it's gonna be a very different video to what I'm used to doing. I'm not gonna make extremely long cuts, nor I'm gonna talk about specific moments of the story, about how this show was actually special. I'm just gonna give my personal reasons and opinions, mostly just in a relatively calm way, especially compared with everything else in my channel. In the channel I have already stated multiple different things, how for example Death Note was my first experience, how Angel Beats was the first anime that I truly watched and I said this is a special thing, and in other different shows I have said multiple things over these couple months. But the one that has been my favorite ever since I first watched it and has never left that spot is Gintama. The second that I knew about Gintama, I was completely certain that it was gonna be one of my all-time favorites. I am a huge fan of comedy, and Gintama was like the masterpiece of the comedy genre in anime. It was a match made in heaven. I really loved it the second that I started watching it, but I was never prepared to anticipate what was gonna happen. This show was in a completely different level from every other one for me. Every other show up until that point that I watched were a lot of them extremely good. I watched multiple shows that even to this day are in my top 10 all time. Yet Gintama was completely different. After just like 50 something episodes, which is the mark of the first serious arc on Gintama, I knew for certain that it was gonna be my favorite, and I put it at the top 1 on my list from that point. You know, only 1/8 of the season of, well, the series. Only 1/8 of the series, and I already knew it was gonna be my favorite, and I never looked back. It was special. As I already stated, I am someone that is very close to the comedy genre. My favorite show as a kid was SpongeBob, and it stayed as one of my favorites even to this day. If you ask me my favorite shows, period, without discriminating between genres or between type of show, I would still probably put it in a top 10, despite the fact that it's a show that is only a comedy that, you know, came out over 20 years ago and I haven't watched in a decade. That was an insanely important show for me in my life, and Gintama was the show that managed to bring back that joy of the child almacord. Every single episode of Gintama was truly fascinating for me because of how funny they were. I am always someone that is gonna laugh, so it's not difficult to make me laugh. But basically, almost every single chapter was fantastic in that regard. Even the serious chapters, which is something I'm gonna talk about later. But every single chapter was special, and even if it wasn't because it has serious moments, I would put it still very high in my list. Probably my top 2 anime would have surpassed it, which is a show that I'm gonna talk about at some point, I'm certain. But regardless, I would have still put Gintama in a really high spot from the comedy alone. Every single episode makes you laugh extremely hard. It is one of those strange cases in which the comedy can actually translate from only Japan to everywhere, and everyone can find it funny. And it's very surprising because this is Japanese comedy, which is very different to the Western one that we in this part of the world have. And especially because a good chunk of the jokes use full on references of sometimes extremely niche shows from Japan that might have never seen the light of the day in anywhere else. It's not only that they make references about very famous shows like Dragon Ball or Naruto. No, they make references about almost everything. And that first couple episodes showcase that. But even then, it's still extremely easy to watch. Maybe it's because I watched it in a specific place that I'm not gonna mention because I do not want to bring, the international laws into that specific website. But in the place that I watched it, they had the reference and explained jokes everywhere. Not that they specifically explained the joke full on, but that they showcase it from where it's referenced. And I was like really dumb in the fact that I basically laughed at the joke and then I watched the reference and I laughed once I knew the reference. I was extremely dumb and I cannot say anything else. I was really dumb and I'm still really dumb and I would still make fun of that and I would still laugh with the show. But every reference not only felt funny, but it felt like they actually had some level of respect to the show that they were referencing. And I extremely grateful that they did it in that way. It's very cool to see that the creator Sorachi decided to give, in a joke way, such respect for other shows that I have never seen or never even heard of before or after, because a couple of those references are still shows that I cannot remember. I can remember the most iconic ones, like the already mentioned Dragon Ball, Naruto, or even other smaller jokes that were extremely cool, like JoJo. But I cannot remember, for the sake of me, a lot of the references. I just remember that they were extremely funny. It was an actual masterclass in order to create phenomenal jokes that everyone can laugh at, and if you know the reference, it's gonna be even better. But the reason to why I fall full in love with Gintama is definitely the serious part of the show. As I said, if the comedy was the only thing that existed in Gintama, it would still be among my favorites of all time. But there was something even better behind, which was the story. The story of Gintama is very weird to explain. It's not in hindsight for the most part, and most of the comedy also showcases some level of character development. It's a very interesting thing because every single chapter, regardless of how it is, with the comedy, ends up in a life lesson, to say in a way. Like a reference to the actual manga, that I still have here, by the way, I'm not gonna move it away, in which every single chapter is called like a lesson. And that is because they feel like it. Almost every single chapter has a life lesson to show you. Even there's some individual chapters that I call among the greatest chapters in any anime, and they have nothing in relation with, actual story, full-on story. They're just, at least in theory, throwaway chapters, standalone chapters with mostly jokes, but that they showed you something special, something that none other show can even conceive. And Gintama does it just constantly. Every 20, 30, 40 episodes, there's one completely out of nowhere that is gonna show you so many different things. And all of that sprinkled with every single chapter having something good to tell. Either the character development of the protagonist or the protagonist group, something small that is gonna talk to you about more and more about the story of the show, or even something that is gonna advance the plot in ways that you cannot expect. You can actually eliminate every single serious chapter and you can still get a very compelling character development. The Sakata Gintoki from chapter 1 is by no means the same one as the one from chapter 300. The development, even though it's still a comedy, is so obvious. Even when there's nothing serious, you can genuinely see how he grows as a human and how he grows closer and closer with the secondary characters and the secondary protagonists. It's fascinating how good it is. And that is also something that happens to every single chapter. And yeah, I know that I changed the angle. Don't worry about that. There's nothing happening. Oh, there's also a cat in the corner. I don't know if you can see her. She is so small. She's called Pocket. It's cute. As I'm saying, every single part of the show feels like it has something to tell you. And that is without even talking about the series arcs, which are probably the best part of it. Now, the series arcs of Gintama are not like your regular series arc. It's still like 90% comedy. It's Gintama. But the 10% remaining is such a fantastic experience, and it has so many good individual series arcs that is completely insane how this show managed to do it. Yeah, the series arcs are never gonna be as full on structure as other fantastic arcs like Chimera Ant or Marineford, but it has its own phenomenal way to accomplish things. Sorachi doesn't need like 20 chapters to develop, because in the small bits every single chapter you can learn more and more about the story, to the point that when you reach those serious arcs you can just get a couple episodes and that's more than enough. And the best part of it is that it's not just one great serious arc. Almost every serious arc feels absolutely fantastic and feels like it has a lasting impact, even if at times it doesn't. So many different arcs, like Beni Sakura arc, the Yoshiwara in Flames arc, or even the 4 Devas, all of them are fantastic in their own way, in which they portray the characters, how they develop, and how their relation is shown as to one that has grown for every character involved. It's not just the protagonist, and some secondary characters. Every single character that appears in an arc feels like it has a purpose and feel like it fulfills a purpose, and that it does it in a very good way. And I haven't even mentioned the best part of the show, which is probably the greatest stretch of back-to-back final arcs in anime history. How basically every single chapter after the start of the Shogun assassination arc is phenomenal. You have that, the farewell of the Shinsengumi, then you have the arc in the other planet that I don't remember the name, and then you have the entirety of the Silver Soul arc that finishes in the movie. Every single one of those arcs develops in such a way that even though they are short, because they are short with the exception of the Silver Soul arc that has like 30 something episodes, all of them manage to do it in such a perfect way. The character development of Gintoki actually doesn't matter for most of them. The Shogun assassination is basically the last moment in which Gintoki has a huge character development, and the rest of it is mostly on the other characters, in Shinpachi, in Kagura, and every other character that ends up having a protagonistic role at some point in either the last 3 seasons or the movie. They are beautiful to watch in a way that I cannot explain it. It is very difficult for me to actually try to explain something like that, because how can I explain the love that you can feel about a serious arc that is just 8 episodes long in the 300th episode of a show, in which their previous 250 were almost entirely comedy, and there's just 30 or 40 that are actual serious. It's just that good, and it's something I cannot explain, and that is something that I just truly want to say to you all. That's the reason as to why you should watch it. I cannot fully explain in words why this show is so phenomenal. It is difficult. I can tell you about how Gintoki is the greatest protagonist that I have ever seen, both in the funny parts, but also in the character development. How his story, how all of the things that happen with his master, how he becomes a samurai, how he stops being a samurai, and how he has to live in the way that he is living right now. I can talk about that for days, but I think that it's impossible to portray how good it is. I can talk about Shinpachi and Kagura, I can talk about the entire of the Shinsengumi, I can talk about the secondary characters, but that would not be able to truly portray how good the show is. I can explain you the comedy, but you will never laugh as hard if you do not watch it. I can explain you why this show made me cry, how this show changed my life, but you would not be able to understand it until you reach those points. And that's why this is the first time in this channel's history that I'm pleased telling you that you should watch this show fully. I know that it's a huge investment, and there's people that is gonna fall in the way to watching it fully. If you do not like the comedy, I would not personally recommend it. But if you are able to stand the comedy and you like it, please watch the entirety of it. I know that it's 400 episodes. I know that it has 3 movies. I know it has non-canon parts. I know that it has a spin-off. But this is one of those shows that is gonna change your life forever. And that is why this Gintama is my favorite show in all of anime. And why I believe that is one of the, if not the greatest anime ever created. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you all enjoyed it. If you want more content like this, talking about specific shows with more of a casual tone and not in a full depth analysis, leave a like, comment, subscribe. I really enjoyed making this type of content, so I will do it probably regardless. But if you want to support the channel, just do it. And well, I hope that you all enjoyed it. I hope that you actually understand how much I love this series. And without anything else to explain, I hope that you all enjoyed it for the third time in like 30 seconds. Yeah, I'm starting to look like a sketch as a kid. I forgot the word. God damn it. Regardless, I hope that you had a great day, and thank you for the 500 subscribers once again, and see you next time. Bye bye.